This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider, typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
The Fan. Just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
All right, it is indeed Top 5 at 5 time. Louis will join at about 5:30, as I said earlier.
The Timberwolves season continues tonight. The Wild season has been over for a few days. It has been a marathon session of exit interviews in St. Paul, I believe at XL Energy Center. Thank you to Kevin Fallness for cutting up a bunch of sound and sending it our way today from the Bill Guerin exit interview. Let's start with this. His thoughts on the series against the Golden Knights.
Game 4 overtime goal, the offsides were those were impactful plays. And then, just not being able to get one of the overtimes. And I think when we were up 2-1 and not being able to get it to 3-1. But even so, we were never out of a game. Like, the only games that weren't 1-goal games were the ones that we won.
So he looks like he's taking the glass half full approach, Dan, and he kind of doubled down on that a little bit later, talking about, does it feel like same old for the Minnesota Wild, losing in the first round?
If you guys can think of a game where we got outplayed, let me know. I don't think we did. It's just we didn't get the timely goals. Well, we did, but it was offsides. So that was a tough situation, but I don't feel like we got outplayed, and I think that's the big difference. I think in some of the playoff series before, we may have been overmatched, like we just maybe got outplayed and beat. But this one, I didn't feel like we got outplayed.
I'm trying to collect my thoughts on this because
I thought you might.
He's doing what probably any president of hockey operations, general manager would do. But I've almost reached a point where, as much as I appreciate his willingness to talk and to do the post-mortem, I think the words are starting to become. I'm blurry from listening to this stuff. I'm drained and tired. He may be right. I think it's fair to say he probably is right. We didn't get dominated to the degree we've been dominated before. But I don't think anybody wants to hear that anymore. I don't. I don't think any of that particularly matters, in large measure because the last 2 or 3 years that in the playoffs when we were eliminated, did he say we were outclassed? Did he say we didn't even have a chance? No, I doubt that he did. He's saying it now because it's convenient, because it allows him to create a separation between the previous failures and this particular failure as well, which was losing 3 straight games. And at some point, I don't think it's all that material whether you got blown out or not. And again, this is all part of the process, but there's a sameness to it that to me rings hollow. That at some point it's you either do it or you don't do it. And they didn't do it. They didn't have enough to do it at key moments of any of these games. And You could say we scored the goal we had to score, but if it was offside, it doesn't count. It's not a goal. Sorry, it's just not a goal. So, can you objectively say the Wild look closer to being a factor than they have before? Yeah, I guess. But it's not enough of a distinction for me to want to raise a banner to it. And at some point, I almost wonder if the Wild would be better off to not talk about any of this until they just do it. Until we actually, the next time, how about this as an idea? The next time you guys talk is when you're celebrating making it out of the first round. Now, again, there's, the Russos of the world need day-to-day contact with these guys.
We need clicks.
But there's just, it just feels all so tortured. If this would have happened and we were in all these games, and they were in all these games, but that's still, to me, too low a bar to be all that excited about and that encouraged with. Because it leaves out some of the moves that were made this season, before this season began, how they might have impacted the position that the team was ultimately in. And there's no guarantee that with the extra money we're going to be able to do something. I mean, I read another headline, we're looking for centers. I mean, lather, rinse, repeat. How many years have we said we're looking for centers?
Almost as long as we've been trying to fix the power play and penalty kill.
I'm not mad at him. I'm not saying he's saying anything that's wrong or that the players are either. I'm just saying if I were a fan, I really would shut off from all of it. I'm just not interested in hearing it. What I want to do is see it. I want to see us doing the one thing that other teams tend to do, even when they allegedly aren't favored to win a series. Win one. Just one. Win one series in 10 years, and they've been unable to do it.
Lastly, from Bill Guerin, one final time on the record talking about Kirill Kaprizov. I think the second to last time you had him on, you asked him 1 to 10. Might have been the last time, 1 to 10, how he felt, how confident he felt. He told you 10. He reiterated the same thing today.
I'm very confident that we're going to get a deal done with Kirill. I think he really loves this market and this team. I think he feels that we're going in the right direction. He's got a good relationship with John. He's got a good relationship with me. And it's just a matter of working through it.
And we can pay him the most, and we intend to pay him the most. I added that part. Kirill Kaprizov. You don't have to add anything. I just wanted it out there.
Yeah, he's saying all the right things. Kirill is. They're obviously going to break the bank. They're going to pay him more than anybody else can pay him. And then it's just a matter of how he feels about, well, do I have a better chance to go someplace else and win quicker? He's not old, but he's not 22 either. So obviously the house of cards collapses if suddenly he says, I'm not interested in signing. Then
that's bad.
Then we're in a whole different world. So you have to at least do that. There's no question.
I will read you this quote, and then we will give some bonus bucks away here in just a minute. I'm tired of being the guy that's on the IL. I think it sucks. Seems like these injury bugs, they stick on one guy for a while. Hopefully, I got mine off me. I took a lot of showers and baths to get them away.
Hold on. Byron Buxton.
Good guess. Good guess.
But probably not him in this case because of the timing.
This would be Royce Lewis, who is making his return back tonight at Target Field. He will be the DH tonight and bat fourth. Pablo Lopez on the mound for the Twins. Remember, if you're going to the Wolves game, there's Twins traffic to deal with as well. First pitch, 6:40. You can watch it on Fox 9. Lori Fisher very excited about that.
Yes, she is.
But the Twins are back in action. It's nice to see.
Did you see the tweet from her that she was shocked to find out via Fox 9 All Day that apparently Buxton and Anthony Edwards have never met? And I meant to send out the snarky tweet reply, well, that's because Buxton's basically been on the IR for the better part of 4 years, but I didn't know she would appreciate that.
She wouldn't even know.
She wouldn't understand.
She would say, how'd they not met?
Yeah.
I mean, it took a while for Ant and Justin Jefferson to meet.
That's true, too. And I'm not sure I understand why these meetings are that emotional for the rest of us.
Because we're one Minnesota, Dan.
Is that what it is?
You'll never understand. We are one Minnesota.
I would say this in any market.
A rising tide lifts all boats.
I guess that's what it is.
We are one Minnesota, and it's nice when our superstars all get along. The Fan and BigDeck.com will give you a shot to win bonus bucks. It is our national cash contest. Final keyword of the night is cash. Go to KFAN.com. Enter the keyword cash.
Louis, in about 15 minutes or so, we'll get his reaction to the Wild not making it out of round one again, and maybe even talk about some remarkable games over the weekend as well in the Stanley Cup.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause. And MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
ZZ Top bringing their legendary music to the Ledge Amphitheater on June 12th. Don't miss out. Tickets are on sale now. You can get yours by heading over to KFAN.com. Make the keyword calendar.
I think the ratings came in on the Caitlin game yesterday.
I did see
I believe I read they ranked up there with an occasional LeBron preseason game. Did you see that?
Those were the only two that were in the ballpark.
Yeah.
LeBron preseason games, I think 1.3 million people watched, including you.
I mean, I didn't watch start to finish. I had it on kind of in the background. The game itself was not very interesting. Some of the best players from Brazil were not playing, but it was more the idea, again, of what she is able to attract. And a texter had mentioned, well, guess what? There are some other WNBA games that are being televised. And I said, I'm sure they are, and I'm sure the ratings will be just as robust as they were for the Clark game. There's still, I guess, even in the text community, there's this odd resentment and to the whole Clark phenomenon, and just accepting it and just celebrating it and enjoying it. That, they had other games on. That wasn't the only game. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. I'm sure that they would have had those games on whether she had exploded on the scene or not. I don't think there's any question about that. And as I said, I'm sure the ratings are just as good. There's a lot of bitterness from. I understand it's a tough time for the hockey community. I know this isn't easy. It's got to be tiresome. Whether you think the Wild made strides or not, the way it works in the National Hockey League, really in any sport, is you can't play in the next round unless you win 4 out of 7. It's just the way it works. It doesn't matter how close you played. It's not like you still get a dance in the next tournament, the next round of it. You don't get the opportunity to participate, and it's hard. And 612 guy wondered, did you have this same mentality with the Wolves prior to last year? You're such a bleeping bozo fraud. Basketball town, my ass. That's the key sentence there, obviously. That tells me everything we need to know. This is an individual who doesn't like basketball, doesn't like it to be covered, pro basketball, has no interest in it, does not want it to be covered. And I'm the first to say, you don't have to love it. You don't even have to pay any attention to it at all. But the more defensive you are, turning it into this a basketball versus hockey thing, the more you expose yourself as the fraud. And I think you can testify. I've never had much of an inability to go back. I would say, I don't know if he's got a Star Tribune subscription, but if he does, go back and read what I wrote on some of the Wolves' close calls when they were routinely being eliminated in round one of the NBA playoffs. And go back. I challenge you to go back and tell me that I was easy on the Wolves in those situations, that I let them off the hook, that because it was a basketball team, I handled them with kid gloves. And as recently as before the run last year, we celebrated what was a terrific regular season for the Wolves, because it was. There was a sense last year that they were finally a serious team, right? That was the theme of our own coverage through much of the season. But ultimately, they were going to be judged, especially in a season where they had the best record for most of the year and yet still didn't finish with the best record. They were going to be judged on what they did in the postseason. They had to take the next step, right? Did we have any difficulty challenging them in that regard, or saying that until you do that, all the other niceties, all the things about getting close don't really mean that much to fans? No, I think people who listen to this show know that we had no difficulty doing that. But then something happened. They did break through. They won 2 series, and then they got taken to the woodshed a little bit. I think we discussed it at the time. I don't think we were gentle on the way the Wolves were eliminated and ultimately competed in that series in which didn't we lose in 5 to Dallas?
We did.
So this is I know when you're in that hockey mentality and it's us against the world, and your team keeps losing in the first round, it's hard. It's hard to not lash out. It's hard not to be resentful, but we're going to cover the stories that are in front of us. And the story in front of us right now that's going to get more attention is that of the team that has advanced again out of the first round and is now matched up against a historic opponent with some big-name players with all kinds of interesting angles. We have no fear or no difficulty doing the same thing for the Minnesota Wild. They just have to do their part. And maybe next year it'll all be different. Because sooner or later it happens, right? You'd like to think. And maybe that will be the season, but no, if you think you've boxed me in, that I'm tough on this team, but I was never tough on the Wolves, believe me, we were plenty tough on them and challenged them. And trust, if they'd lost to Phoenix in round 1, they probably would have gotten pounded on this show, right? But they didn't. They swept the Suns in round 1. They had one of the most historic comebacks in the history of the playoffs by knocking off the defending champion Denver. Were they defending champion?
They were.
Denver Nuggets
in Denver.
So
Game 7.
Those are the facts, man. I know you want to live in your world that it's those evil basketball guys. I can't. How can I say this? I can't manufacture a wild run. I can't anticipate it. I can't report on it. I can't have guests related to it until they actually do it, until they actually take that step. And when they do, trust me, they will get a lot of coverage from a lot of people on the twists and turns of each series as we move forward. But I'm sure I am a bleeping bozo fraud anyway. We'll come back, and speaking of hockey, we'll talk to a guy who talks hockey with us all season and will continue to do so throughout the postseason, which continues even without the Wild. We'll have a chance to look back a little bit with him, his final thoughts on the Wild for this season, and also what's on the Lou Nanne wish list for this club in the offseason. He's usually pretty honest and good about talking about that at the end. And then we'll also take a look at what was a highly entertaining, dramatic weekend of playoff activity, even after the Wild were indeed eliminated. All that with Luigi and your questions. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line is open, 64686.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause, and MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
646-87.
Well, she sneaks around the world from India to Carolina. She's a sticky-fingered filcher from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on a slow boat to China. Tell me, where in the world is
Lou Nanne?
It's time to, as some of Gaardsy's friends would say, nut up, hockey fans, and prepare to hear perhaps some hard truths from Luigi as we look back on another wild season and postseason with maybe some options for what might get the Wild over the hump, and then also some commentary and analysis on the other series and some great action over the weekend as well. Louis joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline, brought to you by, as always, our good friends at Kemp's. If you have questions or comments for Louis on the condition of the club and ideas for the future, 64686. That's the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Louis, welcome. Are you in Florida, by the way?
Yes, I am.
Well, it's 82
For
degrees.
1 more week.
It's 82 here today, Louis. 82.
Unfortunately, I wish I was at 82 here today. It was 90, and I played golf. It was hot.
And I bet you it was humid too, muggy.
Actually, it wasn't too bad
Not
today.
too bad?
I have to tell you, it was a breeze. Yeah, it was very. We've had an unbelievable winter down here as far as humidity. Usually,
Yeah.
you get way more humidity, and during the drought area down here, we haven't had enough rain.
Nice.
They keep threatening rain, but we haven't had it.
Well, good for you. I'm glad it's worked out for you. We'll take it. Yeah, because our 82, it's very dry right now. Dew points are low. This might be, Louis, the best week of weather we've had in we will have in like 5 years. It's unbelievable. It's supposed to be like upper 70s to 80s every day, all week, with no rain, which is kind of nice. And of course, you're not here to enjoy it, but that's okay.
And that's my favorite temperature. I hope it stays.
I'm with you on that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, look. Give me in the Lou Nanne on the Lou Nanne wish list. And it can be a name or it doesn't. It can just be a quality, a kind of player. What would you like to see on the Lou Nanne wish list for the Wild to do to add this offseason that you think could enhance their chances to finally break through that first round hurdle that continues to plague the club and actually advance in the playoffs?
Well, we're not going to get him, but I'd like to see forwards like Reinhardt or Bennett from Florida that I really like. Well, you're not going to get a Tom Wilson. There's only one in the league. You'd love to see something like that. But a young centerman like Courtois and McMichael with Washington. In other words, I think the Wild could be really well served, and it's not easy to get. I don't even know who's up for free agency yet. I don't think they have that many options, but they do have trading chips and they do have money for contracts. I don't know if they were going to try and do something like St. Louis did last year and have offer sheets out, but in the best of worlds, you'd say that you'd like to see the Wild pick up 3 more forwards and 1 more defenseman. And by the way, they might not even need to pick up that defenseman.
Right.
Should Jurek, they traded for the big kid from Columbus, who was a first-round pick, 6th overall, and he just touched slow of foot, but he's really got good hands and he's got great size, and he could be physical. So if he blossoms as a defenseman the way people think he should, the way the Wild thought he should when they dealt for him, Beam's going to be back there in the defense, and you'll still have Bogosian as another guy. So your 7 defensemen are quality defense. That's a real good defense that they have if they stay healthy. So you like Gus to sit in net. You hope the Wallstead lives up to his potential to be the number 2 guy now that Fleury's going. So essentially, if that step is taken by Jurczyk, or however you pronounce his name, you're set a goal in defense. So now I want to see in the best of worlds, if you pick up 3 forwards, 2's great. You definitely need one, and they'll get one for sure because they got money to spend. So, but if you went to 3, there's like 3 positions you could plug in. Then I think you're ready. Although this team, when it was playing during the series, there are little breaks, and that's what makes all the difference in the world. But little breaks, they could have advanced just as soon as they're going out. It's that close. They're a quality team. They're a good team, a real good team, and they could get even better with additions in those positions.
Do you think Guerin understands that the position he's now in, or at least I think he's now in? I think this is a absolutely crucial offseason and crucial season next year for this team, because for years, Louis, what we have been told basically is, look, we made a calculated move that we felt like we had to make in buying out the Suter and Parise contracts. In doing so, we were also well aware we were handcuffing ourselves. The proverbial quote, one hand, we had to do this with one hand behind our back. Well, that's gone. The contracts largely, the big penalty assessed with those contracts from a salary cap standpoint are at an end. And so it gives everybody the impression of, all right, now we're going to take off. Now there's going to be nothing standing in our way. And I think what Guerin has to realize, and maybe he does, is that they're going to be graded on a much more vigorous curve, I think, moving forward, given that that's been the built-in reason why, we're kind of stuck and there's only so much that we can do. Do you think he gets that?
Well, I think you're being harsh on him, right? And although I know you're being accurate, because that's the way fans will be. But I want you to look at the other side of the coin. He has been hamstrung for what has been 4 years, but look at the performance in that time being hamstrung. Look around the league and look at other teams and see where they've been and what they've done. Look at how many times the Wild have made the playoffs since he's been here. I think they missed one time out of the whole time, compared to many other the real good teams in the league that were able to regroup after, because they had the finances, they had the wherewithal to do it. So I think that you just can't go out and say, oh, now you're really going to be graded. Well, I want to tell you one thing. There's a lot of teams in the league that haven't done as well as he's done running this team. There's some deals you question, and that happens to everybody. It doesn't matter which team you're running. But the overall result, I got to tell you, I'm thoroughly impressed with what they've done during this time when they were hamstrung. And I do think, he knows now you got to make an advancement. You definitely have to start looking at going by the first round, because that's the biggest thing. Had they gotten by the first round this year, what would you have said? What would be the next thing? It's just like Rory McIlroy never went into Grand Slam till he finally did after 11 years. And so I have to tell you, I'm extremely pleased with what they've done, making the moves that he thought were the right moves, that to buy out Parise and Suter and go from there, and the way they were able to keep this club together, playing really well. Now they have to make the next step, right? But I don't think that you're going to be graded. You're going to take heat if say you don't even get to the first round, don't even get to playoffs, which I feel very confident they're not only going to get there, but they're capable of going a long way. But that's what comes with sports. That's why people are so invested in it. That's why they are so passionate about it, because there are all these feelings about it. But I want you to really give credit where credit's due. And there's one or two things that I think could have been done better or differently. But I'm like every other fan. They all think that way. And every other general manager league's got people saying the same thing about them. But I'm really, really pleased. I'm very impressed with the job that Guerin's done.
Well, here's the thing. You have been in this long enough, I think, to know that making the playoffs is better than not. Yeah, obviously, and making the playoffs for the number of years they have is in of itself an achievement. But, Louis, it's about advancing. At some point, it has to be about advancing. You know that. And so for fans who are frustrated with, the one and done aspect of this thing, and again, I get it. We were not routed the way we've been routed in some previous postseasons. I still think you reach a point where either you got to do it. You have to break out of it at some point, whether it's luck, puck luck, guile, ability, everything coming together, whatever the case may be. It has to happen, or there's going to be some added pressure, because the one thing to me that shouldn't be left out of the Parise-Suter equation is this, and you may not agree with me, but I'll give it to you again. We've talked about it before. He made a calculated decision, and I'm not even here to tell you that he didn't have his reasons for when he did the buyout, right? That was his insistence. He thought, for I think some political reasons in the locker room, among other things, that it needed to be done. And there was some stuff. You and I talked about that. But he made that decision. So if he's hamstrung by it, that has to be factored in there. No one forced him to particularly make that call as well. And that part of it should not be forgotten either, should it?
No, that's right. The only thing that you can't gauge is if he had made that decision, would the Wild have been as successful in making the playoffs in the years that they were here?
Right.
So you can't. That's why you can't go down. And I agree with you. Now that he's in the position, the Wild are in the position now to go out and do the things you want to do. Yeah, now you have to get by the first round. But I just didn't want all the things that happened before just dismissed as they commonplace, like it was easy to do. It wasn't easy to do. And by the way, how do you like it if you get in the wrong side of the playoffs, like Colorado? A team that's capable of winning the Cup and going on the first round because of where they were. In L.A., the same thing. If you get in that no man's land, second against third, you always get a real tough draw. But that's why you play the game. And yes, I agree with you. Their goal is definitely to go by the first round, and if not farther.
So as we look back on this season, one of the questions is, and Russo and I talked about this, sort of what happened to Nyquist, right? A guy with great production that went way off the end of the table this year, and then he came up again because unfortunately for him, he was the one offside in the goal that might have changed the whole damn series, right? We might be previewing a round two without that particular call, which was the right call, but it's a tough one. So is this a case when you watch Nyquist, is he redeemable? Is it a guy where he suddenly got old, or how should Wild fans view him at this point and his acquisition looking back?
Well, unfortunately, the kind of play that he had, he's the kind of guy when you go to a game and if you go sit and warm up and you're watching, you go, ooh, he should be good. And then the game started and he's not. Well, that's what happened to him this year. He just wasn't good. He's got the skills to be there. It's very reminiscent of what happened to Johansson a couple of years ago. Remember, and everybody was clamoring for him to get him out of here. He's not doing anything. Then he bounces back with a real good year. Now, you could hope that he's redeemable in that way because of the skill, the hands, the speed, and the knowledge of the game. But you said the thing right at the end. Is he too old now? Is he past the position? By age, he's really not too old because he's still a good skater, but there comes a time when some guys go faster. And now, would I take the chance on Nyquist? No, not now, because I saw, 30 games or so the way he played, and it's not just the offside, it's the production, and it wasn't there. And so if I'm going to take a chance, I'm going to go with someone younger that's maybe even hungry. The one thing that you have to have is hunger. And everybody knows that if there's a time you're going to be really hungry, it's when you're just beginning your career, because you want to be there. You want to stay there. You have never had the taste. You clamor for it. Even though you think you keep the hunger, which you do through your career, but before you get there, before you've really hit it, the first couple of years, there's a drive that inherent. It's in your consciousness every day. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. That's how you become a great player, is by desire, by the passion. And so I would I would be taking a bet on another player.
Did Ryan Hartman, with his finish, save his Wild career?
Well, you might remember, I was the one guy that, I don't know why they even talk about getting rid of Hartman. I said he can play for me anytime the way he plays. And that was after the Ottawa game, and that's because I saw what went on in the Ottawa game. And people didn't see that. I was broadcasting that game. And I thought that was way over the top what happened. He got checked out of the corner illegally. There should have been a call. He went down, he got up, and he was screaming at the referee on the way to the bench. Then they had a timeout, so nobody in the Twin Cities or anybody watching TV couldn't see it. I watched what it was going on. And he and the referee were screaming at each other, just screaming at each other. And Ryan was upset not having a call, and the guy, was upset with him, complained about it. The next shift, Ryan comes out there, a guy pulls him down. So what does that same referee do? He gives him the guy the penalty for tripping, hooky, whatever it was, and he gave Ryan embellishment call, which was ludicrous. It was just ludicrous. So now Hartman's head is right; it's in a different stratosphere. So when he comes out again, the next shift, they had the face-off down by the circle, and he and Stutzel, the puck was still there, and they were battling for the puck down there, and he grabbed him by the head and pushed his head to the ice. Now, was it a penalty? Yes. Was it worth 8 games? No. It was a joke, and everybody was clamoring, and even some of my people on the trip and in the media were complaining. I said, don't talk to me about that. I don't want to hear it. That guy with the fire, he's got the passion. I'd rather have a guy play for me that I have to corral than somebody I have to coax. And you have to corral a guy like Hartman. You have to talk to him. You have to continue being his head to corral that drive and that passion that sometimes goes off kilter. But I want somebody like that. I want that drive. And so if they'd have got rid of him after that, I'd been really upset. I would have thought it was a real not very intelligent move.
Are we at all concerned about our backup goaltending situation here? The numbers for Wallstedt were not very good, obviously. So, in fact, I think Russo had a note that the Guerin told him after the presser today that the Wild are going to sign a third goalie, potentially to be an NHL backup. So, I mean, this kid was very, I'm not giving up. I'm not saying he's a complete bust or he's never going to be any good, but it definitely feels as if the good feeling about him is dissipating a great deal on the basis of performance thus far.
I have to agree with that. And one of the ways you could tell is just the way they were talking about when they signed him to the longer-term contract. They were talking about having 3 goaltenders there, having them up and down playing games. That never materialized. So I'm thinking that after he'd go down there, he didn't play as well as they were expecting. And so this does not surprise me. I hadn't heard that, but I would have thought that they'd be looking at signing another goaltender just in case. And now I look at some of the other goaltenders in the minor leagues, and like the guy that's playing for Toronto, Stolarz, when I saw him down in Anaheim, he was on their farm team in San Diego, and saw him play a number of games. The guy, he went down and did the job, so he ends up in the NHL. Last year, Florida, this year with Toronto. Well, you take another guy that, like Boston's got down there, DiPietro, and goalie of the year in the East in Providence. They're performing, and that's what you have to expect from him. Now, he'll get a chance, he'll get the opportunity, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be a short leash rather than a long leash, because they know they got to perform. That Western Conference is really tough.
Yeah.
And you can't be taking chances and just trying to get somebody to make it. He's going to have to make it on his own by performing.
So let's broaden out the subject here in the remaining minutes today, and obviously we'll get a chance to go in much more depth about the Cup playoffs moving forward involving other teams. But I have to ask you where you rank the Jets' comeback the other day over the weekend against the St. Louis Blues, because we were trying to figure out. I mean, it's It's difficult for me. There's many that could top it. So did you happen to be watching it live?
I watched
what did you make of it?
I watched it live, and I got to tell you, I can't think of anything was more surprising when you're under 2 minutes and you're winning by 2 goals. And I always tell people, but Bill Mosienko scored 3 goals in 21 seconds. Yeah, not in a playoff game, not with that kind of passion and intensity, and his was in a regular season game, not a playoff game. When you got that, especially, and I'm sure you look at Montgomery to have a heart attack when his players got the puck on the ices instead of just plays it out in the middle. You see what's happening. People are looking over the year now, over the last couple of years. Actually started happening when Patrick Roy started pulling his goaltender with 5 minutes when he's down 2 goals or something. And then it's creeped in where it's got down to, it always used to be a minute and a half. Then it creeped in with these teams 2.5 minutes when they're down 2. But when it's creeping in, one of the other things that's also crept in, our guys are trying to score on the open net. When they're forgetting the fact that too many faceoffs in your own zone could result in a goal against. You don't want to be taking that. So unless you got a clean shot at the open net, you don't take hopers all the time. You flip the puck out into the neutralized area, and it's going to kill 20 to 40 seconds for them to get back in zone and in position. And when Montgomery's guy didn't do that, I know he almost had a heart attack. And then they get the one, then they get the other one. Well, they got the one, then they got the other one after that face-off, a little while after that face-off, but that would have killed so much time on the clock. And I couldn't believe it happened. I'm looking again, I'm trying to see it. How did this happen? Did it beat the clock in your head? You were here and looking at 10 seconds, 9 seconds. Now you're looking at the play and you're wondering, did it make it? And it makes it. That was the most improbable thing that I thought could ever happen that I've seen in a long time in hockey.
How does a team, let alone their fan base, how does a team recover from that kind of loss? I mean, that's got to take more than a minute or 2.
Yeah, the team, the Blues are not going to recover for their life, even though they might go on to do greater things after.
Sure.
They will never forget this.
No.
I still remember we lost in overtime against St. Louis in the 7th game at Met Center in the afternoon when Kevin O'Shea came across the blue line, shot the puck, went off the goalpost, hit Cesar Maniago in the back, and we lost in overtime. I'm still upset about that. We'd have been going again against Montreal Canadiens, and we never got to go and do it that time. We did it the year before. Then that year we got blown out, and I think of that many times in overtime, how goals are scored. So these guys will never, ever get over it. I mean, it'll soften somewhat, but you got to do something positive now as a player or get to a different level than the first round to try and have that pain go away.
Is the cliche true that anybody who's been in the game, in your case, obviously as a player and as a general manager, that you remember the devastating losses more than you do in some ways, or you feel those more than you do the exhilarating, dramatic victories?
Well, I got to tell you, I said that to my wife right after the game. I said, now, if that was me, I would have rather have lost 7-0 than that. I
believe it.
And I called Tommy Reed the next day. I says, now, Tommy, you understand why I say I'd rather lose by 6 goals than by 1. I says, that would have drove me nuts the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's you wouldn't forget it. And that one, like you said, even by all-time historical standards, that one they'll be talking about that one for the next 100 years.
I can't remember, and I'm sure there is, but you see so many games, and I'm not talking about regular season. I'm talking about a playoff game, a move-on game, not just a playoff game. A move-on game, a 7 game. Yes. I can't remember something like that.
No, again, when you don't have a rooting interest, it's. The theater, you can't get any better theater than that, right? It doesn't get any more compelling than that if you do not have a vested interest. So this is great. This is unbelievable. This is why Stanley Cup is a Stanley Cup.
my wife says, "Who are we cheering for?" I said, "I don't know. I like seeing those guys. This guy, you know, they got the Minnesota guys here, and then I like Winnipeg too. And then you got Neil Pionk to room with Vinny when they were with the Rangers together." I said, "I don't know who I want to win. I just it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
One minute I feel okay, you're going to win, good, and then okay, you're going to win, it's good." And it just was, as you said, it was remarkable theater. It was unbelievable game to have. And I don't know if you noticed, but you should have seen national media the next day and different days of people talking about the game that I never thought to even watch a game. And my doctor, Dr. Wilson, Walt Wilson down in Mayo, was in Vietnam. And he sent me a message. He said, they love the game, the games over here too. So I didn't even know Vietnamese knew what hockey stick was.
Yeah, it goes to show you. Yeah, that was one of those that people are going to be talking about for a long time. Well, thanks for the good work as always. Enjoy the lovely low humidity in Florida, and we'll talk next week.
Yep, see you.
Thanks, you, Luigi. Appreciate you. That is Lou Nanne, brought to you by our good friends at Kemp's, trying to fight the good fight on behalf of his buddy Bill Guerin. I got some people who agree with Louis, some not so much. We'll get to some of that reaction and try to set the scene in our final half hour for game number 1, second round, Western Conference playoffs. Your Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the heavy underdog Golden State Warriors.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause. And MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Stay.
Game 1 of the second round tips off tonight. What better way to watch it than with Carboni's Pizza? You can visit one of their 30-plus locations to enjoy delicious pizza and get ready for the Minnesota playoff run. Find your nearest Carboni's today, carbonispizza.com.
We started the show today by suggesting we are indeed your anything is possible leader, the famous KG quote in the wake of him, his winning a championship with the Boston Celtics, and that it felt like it applied for the NBA playoffs already this year, and to that extent might be very encouraging to Wolves fans, although as Gaardsy pointed out, maybe Warriors fans too, that whatever the chalk said about the way these playoffs were supposed to go, there's at least some early indication that anything is possible this year, so why not us? Why not now? And I mentioned the examples of the two game ones yesterday, featuring the heavily favored Celtics blowing a 20-point lead to the Knicks and ultimately losing in, I think it was OT. I think that game went to OT, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, Brunson missed a great shot at the buzzer.
He did. And a great feed by the much-maligned Cat. More on that in a minute.
Yep.
And then later that night, the Denver Broncos, well, no, I guess in this case it's the Nuggets, took care of Oklahoma City, which had, I believe, an 11, 12, 13-point lead with like about 6 minutes to go in the fourth, came from behind in Okie City, and won that game on a last-second shot by Aaron Gordon. And I should also mention, you can add to that list what had already taken place, game 1 of the Cleveland Cavaliers-Indiana Pacers series, right, where the heavily favored Cavs, the number 1 seeded team in the Eastern Conference, heavily celebrated this entire year, got basically, I won't say routed, but beaten pretty decisively by, well, they're called underrated so often that they're probably not underrated anymore, the Indiana Pacers. So, again, it makes you feel like, well, maybe it is going to be that no matter what your seeding is, you have a chance if you get hot at the right time and you stay healthy to get something done. And to that end, the notes on the injury list for the Cavaliers who have game 2 tonight against the Pacers
not good
is dramatic, right? Evan Mobley out. He, of course, is the defensive player of the year. DeAndre Hunter out with a thumb issue. And Darius Garland will continue to sit with a toe issue. And they'll all miss tonight's game, which means there's a very good, again, the league's weird. And we've seen injured teams, rise up on a given night. But the Pacers are in very good position to go up 2-0 going to Indianapolis for games 3 and 4. So anything in 2024-25 NBA playoffs might indeed be possible. There was some bitterness from the text line regarding our visit with Minnesota's own Sam Gordon, who covers the Golden State Warriors for the San Francisco Chronicle. We chatted with him at about 4:30, and folks came away saying, well, this sounds very much like the conversation you had with Mike Trudell, that Sam made it sound like Wolves might be lucky to win one game. I don't really think that's what Sam was doing as much as Trudell was. I think in Sam's case, I'm asking him for a scouting report on the trials and tribulations of this team that started out great this season. Then were, what did he say, like 15 and 23 in the middle of the season.
Right.
And then they make the buckets deal, and suddenly they can't lose. And so I was asking him more for, okay, what has worked for the Warriors? What can they do at their best? I didn't ask him for a prediction. I don't know if he did a prediction in the Chronicle, but I didn't take it so much as he was saying, well, why is, he's basically suggesting the Wolves have no reason to even show up. I think what he was saying is giving some ideas on, okay, here's where the challenges might be different for the Wolves than it was against the Lakers, because they run very different offenses. And as you pointed out earlier, the Golden State kind of, motion is in some ways more challenging. Now,
for the Wolves, yeah.
I think, my own opinion is, I think that I will be surprised if Butler dominates in this series. I think he's not going to be stopped, but I think the Wolves, again, this is, I think, the strength of the team. The number of wing defenders that can at least make life semi-difficult, I think, for other wing players, right, is what gives this team a chance to go far. I really believe that. I think they, now Johnny thinks Randall's going to get a fair amount with Butler. I worry a little bit about that matchup from a quickness standpoint a little bit, but, Randall has some force that he can play with, and that might work against Butler. But I think of all our wing guys. Now, Na is used a decent amount on Steph, but he could be used on Butler, I think, some. He's slighter, but I think he could. I think there's occasions where you might be able to put of Jaden on him. I think we've got enough. And even, I will tell you, I like Anthony Edwards on Butler sometimes.
I'm guessing they'll do that from time to time.
I like that too. And my point is, there aren't a lot of teams that have 3 or 4 people they can name that you say, well, that's stupid. That's a blowout. That player is going to get abused. These guys are willing defenders who I think in several cases have enough physicality also to not stop Butler. But I think to make it less likely that Butler is going to be a dominant player in this league. So I sort of like that matchup. And on the other hand, I don't know if, is it Gary Payton II?
Yep.
Who is questionable for tonight. That's a key loss if he's definitely out, because he was the guy that they tended to like to use against Anthony Edwards. Because I do look at this series and I say, well, that's where the Wolves should also have a significant advantage. You're probably not going to stop Curry, although actually, even though he scored a lot, he didn't shoot that well against the Wolves. He's always going to be a challenge because, as you say, he never stops moving. But I have a hard time looking at this series. Now, I don't know what plans the Warriors have. The word is they're going to zone us some. That might be one of the challenges that they try to present. But I think there's no reason to believe that Edwards should not be a big-time scorer in this series as well. I don't see any natural matchups there where you go, well, that guy for Golden State could give him some difficulty, especially if Gary Payton II is not available.
Yeah, really, to me, the whole thing, too, again, comes down to the Wolves' depth and how many different options they have on both ends, really, offensively and defensively. And the Steph thing, what I'm interested in is how many different guys guard him. I kind of like the idea of, obviously, Jaden's going to start out on him. And again, who knows? Maybe he picks up a couple of fouls. The physicality, from what I've gleaned, has not carried over from series to series here. Remember how you could do anything you wanted?
Yes.
Houston got away with a lot of just straight up grabbing Steph away from the ball.
That's true.
Will that be allowed in this series? Who knows? We know that Jaden can pick up fouls in bunches, and you're going to have to do other different people. But Curry ran the equivalent of almost 2 miles on Sunday night, right? And Amen Thompson apparently was cramping because of it. Curry has 15 years on that guy. I would like to see as many fresh bodies on Curry as you can throughout the day, because you know he's going to play 45 minutes.
No question.
So if he's going to run around, which he's going to do because that's what he does, keep fresh bodies on him so that when it is the winning time, if it comes down to that, you at least have some. I don't want one guy, especially Jaden, who that's not his strength, chasing him around for 35, 40 minutes.
No, you have to mix that up for that very reason, and you're not probably going to stop him. It's just whether, I mean, to be honest, I think the Wolves can win this series even if Curry gets 28 points a night.
Sure.
It's a matter of then what other people do. The word on the street is likely, at least in the starting lineup, you put, naturally speaking, it would be Conley on Hield. That makes probably the most sense. And that's a guy, is a wild card who, as we said, in Game 6 had 0 points in the Rocket series. And in Game 7, what offer was it, 33?
Yeah.
Or was it even more than that? Whatever
23
it was.
in the
It was
first
ridiculous.
half. 9 threes.
So, and again, I'm less paranoid about something I was quite paranoid about a year ago. And that was the old, well, they make you play small and then the Wolves got a problem. Because I think what the Wolves have already shown, albeit against a different opponent, is they're very comfortable at different sizes now offensively. They're comfortable without Rudy on the floor to finish a game. Remember, 2 of the games we won, he did not play the last 4 minutes of either one of them.
3 and 4.
I insist that a year ago, I just don't think Finchie would have had the cojones to do that. He wouldn't have felt the freedom to do it. You check the box scores. Rudy tended to play down the stretch of pretty much every game. And I'm not saying Rudy can't be a factor to the good in this series, but I'm saying I think we're a lot more comfortable, as we talked about with Conley, about playing different styles and what those are and who the players are we should have on the floor together when we go smaller. And there might be games in which Rudy is not as big a factor, but I don't offensively. The first 4 games of the series, he scored 14 points against the Lakers. I think he was still effective defensively. But my point is, I think we've reached an understanding of what the right combination of players are, whether that the Wolves can succeed playing a smaller style, in which, by the way, I also think it becomes even easier to run if they want to, which they should. And on the other hand, still try to take advantage of Rudy's size by going big as well. I think that this club has matured in that regard and figured that out in a way that a year ago was like, oh my God, well, if Rudy's not out there, then for long stretches, well, that is going to kind of screw up our defense, and then we're going to be done. I don't think that's as much of a concern, at least not to me, as it was a year ago.
And probably they got the taste of it. I'm sure they're annoyed that they did all of that and still lost in the Western Conference Finals. Like, this team feels like, even though it didn't look like it for a long time, this team does, I'm sure, feel themselves as a title contender, and I doubt they care how they get to that finish line or how closely they get to that finish line. I don't think they care too much who's going to be in, who's going to be out, and that really is the dream. Look around. There's not a lot of teams that have the quote-unquote depth that the Wolves have.
It's absolutely true.
Or even their important role players like Nas and Nah, because Nah didn't play very well last series. I know he had a couple of plays, and that's a continuation from the playoffs last year, too, which scares me, because if they get it from him, then it's a wrap. Mm-hmm. If the other guys just kind of give their baseline stuff, like the also-rans, the Colony, even 1 or 2 of those guys can have an off game, and they have some other guys to pick up for it. Other teams, including the Warriors, don't have that kind of luxury right now.
Did we miss another storyline of rage related to the ongoing historic relationship between the Golden State Warriors and our favorite team, the Minnesota Timberwolves? We'll discuss that. Wrap up the show.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, is telling everyone, let's face it in therapy. By talking or texting with a supportive, licensed therapist at Talkspace, you can face whatever is holding you back, whether it's mental health symptoms, relationship drama, past trauma, bad habits, or another challenge that you need support to work through. It's easy to sign up. Just go to Talkspace.com and you'll be paired with a provider typically within 48 hours. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule. Plus, Talkspace is in-network with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. Make your mental health a priority and start today. If you're not covered by insurance, get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com and enter promo code SPACE80.
Joe next.
KFAN and Sukkot Manufacturing bring you Fan on the Farm starting May 19th. 9 to noon, we'll be taking your tractor talkbacks again. Each day, one farmer will be chosen to receive a Sukkot prize pack, including a Carhartt cooler and a Brewmate Growler canteen. You can get full details at KFAN.com/farm. Sukkot Manufacturing Company, helping farmers feed and fuel the world. The show wrap, as always, brought to you by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the bumper-to-bumper show wrap.
952 guy has hit the mother load, man. He does remind us of an angle that we didn't get to yesterday that links the Wolves and Warriors history. You'll remember it and shake your head in a minute once I start talking about it. I'm looking at a story that was published June of 2015. Last summer, the Golden State Warriors were in the mix to get Kevin Love out of Minnesota. But Flip Saunders would not back off his asking price, Klay Thompson. A lot of people, including the writer of this particular story, says they thought they should pull the trigger. They didn't. It was the right move. And it was mentioned at the time that perhaps the guy most responsible for making sure that the Warriors did not go through with that deal was the late, great Jerry West. He was a part owner and consultant with the team, and he basically said, you make that trade, and I'm done with you. I will never speak to you again. I will never have anything to do with you again. You cannot do it. This team is built on defense, potentially. He guards. Kevin Love is a wonderful offensive player, but not a very good defender. And the rest is history. They won not one, not two, not three, but 4 titles with Klay Thompson.
We have about 5 minutes left in the show. I do have in the system, it says flip on details of Klay Thompson.
Oh, this is juicy.
I don't know. I can't remember for sure, but I know this is October 26th. No, this is, I think this is what we talked about on the weekend after he died, actually. That's the date.
Okay.
But the Klay Thompson angle, here's that.
No, the article didn't represent that, actually. I think the article was pretty accurate. How that person got that out of there, I don't know, but he threw it my way, and I said, well, my recollection was that was the only chance there was going to be any conversation.
Basically how it was in a conversation, and they had interest in Kevin, the conversation came that basically if there was to be a deal that was going to be made, that Klay Thompson had to be involved in the deal.
Right.
If he wasn't involved in the deal, there was no use even talking. I wasn't going to explore going to a combination of other players or draft picks. It was that, we felt that with Love, we wanted to get what we consider a superstar player back, and that, no matter where it was. And part of the reason was, like the article said, is that I had a comfort level of coaching Love. And because I really felt that if he came back, he had a good year, we played, that in reality, I thought he probably was not going to bypass a huge contract, which most players don't, even though they might say they're not going to. But it comes down to it, it's tough for them to turn their nose at $30 million. So I didn't have a problem as far as bringing Kevin back. And so Golden State knew that the whole time. And so when the situation came to Cleveland, Cleveland came similar to Golden State, where they wanted to get Love, but they didn't want to include Wiggins in the deal. And as I said to them, it was the same thing. Starting point was to negotiate things would be that Wiggins had to be included, and then we would do whatever we had to do, and the others to make it work, and that's how it evolved.
Boom! Wow, good callback by you. Good memory of finding that particular deal, and as the story has been told after, the Warriors management ultimately listened to Jerry West, and they listened to Steve Kerr, because supposedly Kerr was also on the record saying that he did not approve of that deal as well. And look, Kevin Love it's not even a rip on Kevin Love. Kevin Love was a very good NBA player, right? Had some good results with Miami as well. But Thompson, this was obviously before he got hurt, right? Klay Thompson was one of the great shooters, obviously.
Big time. Could
guard anybody. Two-way player. The ball moved. He was one of those guys that, and he never dribbled. Remember that somebody did a stat one time,
great.
He scored 32 points and dribbled twice or something. Some ridiculous
catch and shoot,
stat,
baby.
Catch and shoot. But that's a really good connection that I had forgotten about. I'm glad Texture Guy, who was listening to yesterday's podcast, reminded us of Jerry West. I mean, thwarting that deal. Now, would the Wolves have been any better with Thompson?
No.
Probably not, because we were screwing up everything at that point, right? But it's a tantalizing thought to think that he might have ended up.
Would we have been too good that we couldn't properly develop, not tank, develop, as Flip would tell you all the time?
Yeah.
To get Karl Anthony Towns, and then Wiggins obviously helped get us D'Lo, who helped get us Conley and Nah. The dominoes
all the pieces fit
are actually kind of working in the Wolves' favor. For once, in a way. We had to go through a lot of random dysfunction, but our guys were just good enough to get us other players that were just good enough to get us players that we now have. And you do have to win the lottery twice to have it happen.
I would that's also true.
That happens.
I need a little help from Cat. I tried to stick up for him yesterday, and he did not play very well. He had foul trouble. There's a new meme. Have you seen the video?
Yes.
But isn't he in foul trouble there? He might
have fouled out. I don't know. Well, he didn't foul out last
night. I thought he was in foul trouble again yesterday.
He was.
So could that just be his effort to make sure I don't get a foul called on me? Because it's being used against him as, well, that's how combative Cat is. Looks like he's trying to run away from the contact.
And he had another in the second half.
Yeah.
He was not going to get a call on Al Horford, and that just did not stop him, which is unfortunate because I'm sure he is getting fouled, but it's the playoffs.
Yes.
And Cat just doesn't get that whistle like he thinks he should, and that was tough. But you know what?
He did not play a very good game, although he did have a nice tip-in late.
Big tip-in.
It was a big tip-in.
It's not his fault Brunson can't finish.
It was
Mr. Clutch. It was a perfect pass.
Perfect pass.
Perfect read, perfect pass.
At the end of regulation.
Shots right there. Got a couple of rebounds late.
If only Brunson was more clutch.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, might want to hit a
Mr.
shot.
Clutch. Yeah. You can't get any more clutch than that.
No, that's very, very true.
Could have saved 5 minutes of overtime.
They're broadcasting from the cage immediately as soon as we wrap up. Is that correct?
The homies will be howling.
Outstanding. We're back tomorrow to review Game 1 and talk about other matters beginning at 3 o'clock right here in the Fan.
Whenever you need me,
go get them, Dylan. Show us what you can do.
It's true that some things change as we get older. But if you're a woman over 40 and you're dealing with insomnia, brain fog, moodiness, and weight gain, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. And with MIDI Health, you can get help and stop pushing through it alone. The experts at MIDI understand that all these symptoms can be connected to the hormonal changes that happen around menopause, and MIDI can help you feel more like yourself again. Many healthcare providers aren't trained to treat or even recognize menopause symptoms. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts. They're dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions for dozens of hormonal symptoms, not just hot flashes. Most importantly, they're covered by insurance. 91% of MIDI patients get relief from symptoms within just 2 months. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.